Stocks for beginners. Phil Muscatello and Finpods are authorised reps of Money Sherpa. The information in this podcast is general in nature and doesn't take into account your personal situation.
Gold is only driven by governments buying it because it's bullets. Yeah. As we can see, although we've had a little quiet patch for a few weeks, the need for governments to buy bullets seems to be on a never increasing trajectory. And the currency of war is gold because inter-country transactions, when there's a war involved, suddenly they don't take paper anymore. They take submarines with crates of gold.
Hi and welcome back to Stocks for Beginners. I'm Phil Muscatello. Investing in science fiction. Is this the final frontier? And what's the precious metal that you can wear on your finger and is used in your car? Joining me today to explain the outer reaches of science fact is Clem Chambers. Hello, Clem.
Hi, how's it going?
Very well, thank you. Thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah, it's great to be on.
Clem is an author, journalist and founder, former CEO of ADVFN, Europe's leading stocks and markets website. Clem is a sought-after media commentator and a regular guest on major television networks including CNBC, Al Jazeera, BBC, BNN and Fox News, and a prolific writer. Where did this come from? I mean, you write everything from market analysis to fiction.
Well, it's funny because people say, well, if you know this about stocks, you should be rich. And I live in Monaco. And the reason I write this stuff is not to make money out of being paid to write, although that does happen. It's because it forces you to crystallize your thinking about investment ideas. And a lot of people, they just take tips and they buy stuff. And if they make money, well, they don't really know why. And if they lose money, they blame the person that told them. But really to invest, you have to come up with ideas and theories, and then you have to test them. And of course, if you have to sit down and write 800 words on an idea, it forces you to actually nail it down and make it clear. Now, of course, you could write a big load of old puff that doesn't make any sense when a lot of people do that. But, that's kind of not what I'm about. I'm about writing something that anybody can understand and clarifying the situation so that people go, oh, that's what it is it? Oh, now I know. And they can say, well, actually, now you've told me how it all works. I don't want anything to do with it. Or now you've told me how it works. I want lots of that. And if you really don't know what you're doing, you certainly don't want to put your money behind it. And as I say to people that say, well, I was thinking about, say, platinum, as we're going to talk about later. Should I buy platinum? And I always say, if you have to ask, the answer is always no. And it might be a great pick. It might be a terrible pick. But if you have to ask, is it a great pick? The answer is no. Always no. You have to know. And if you don't know, you shouldn't do it. And, if you know, yeah, well, it's worth taking a risk and perhaps being wrong. But if you're in, oh, is it, isn't it? Oh, I need to ask somebody, is it, isn't it? Then the answer is always no. And for me, writing articles about investment ideas forces me to be clear and understand what's going on and have my head completely wrapped around the subject. And of course, when you go to the market, and that means your chances of success are much higher than if you just, then, oh, I like that. Oh, my gut tells me. And as I always say, when people say, well, my gut is telling me this, I say, well, I know what your gut's attached to.
It's really interesting, though, the rise of AI at the moment. People are going to be starting to use artificial intelligence to do their investment analysis. And I think the old box inside the head, we still really need that to really think about what we're doing. Are you concerned about that and the way people are going to be investing
I think
having commitment to what their ideas are?
Being concerned about new technology is what people do a lot of, but actually, I do think that people should take most of it. And AI will not tell you what's a good stock pick and a bad stock pick, even if it was allowed to, because the markets are highly random, and getting it to work on random stuff, it can't work on random stuff. It can work on non-random stuff. And so it's brilliant because you can say, oh, ABC company, who's the CEO? What did he do 10 years ago? Where did he go to school? What's their major product lines? How much sales did they do? Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it going sideways? Oh, they do eggs. So what's the market for eggs like? What's the international demand for eggs? What are the expanding markets for eggs? And it will go bang, 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 rather than you have to go looking on the Google web for, hours and hours. You can just cut to the facts that you want really, really quickly. And you can say, well, okay, then I like these eggs and I like this egg company. List all the 5 egg companies in Europe and list them, rank them by intelligence of the CEO or by their share price actions in the last 90 days. And it will give you facts absolutely quickly, and it will give you comparative facts, which are incredibly important and really difficult to find out there. So it's marvelous as a research tool because it will absolutely cut to the facts really, really quickly. It can read that, 10K or whatever is the equivalent in the country you're in, and give you all the key points. You can say, hey, AI, what's the change in status in this year end from the interim? What are the big moves? Which ones are great and which ones are terrible? Rate that out of 100 and so on and so forth. I like that company. List from the top 10 biggest companies in this sector from strong to weak. And then if you're a hedge fund, you can go long the strong one and weak the short one, short the weak one, and have a market neutral position and not have to hire somebody out of a business school at the age of 23 and pay them a lot of money to do it for you.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, isn't it? But speaking of interesting times, what's your general overview of the market right at this point? And because these things move so quickly, I'll date stamp this. We're recording on the 23rd of July, 2025, or the 22nd, depending on where you are in the world. Yeah, just give us a quick overview of your view on the economy and the markets.
We're in the new era, and we're in an era of increasing global stress. We're in an era of revolutionary technological developments, which is AI. We're in an era where there's a complete 180 in global governance strategy from trying to create some kind of energy poverty and to, ameliorate all sorts of environmental issues to running flat out, burning all the energy that they can possibly get their hands on so that each country can be dominant in AI. Or not dominated by another country that's dominant in AI. So the world has completely changed, and AI is going to is already turning it on its head, because AI is energy consumption, and there's no second place in AI. There's no limit to the demand, so there's no limit to the future demand of energy. So that changes everything. Because the old model was, yes, try not to use so much energy because you have to wreck the environment to do it. And you've got to ameliorate your current usage, get it all carbon net zero. And the best way to do that is to really cut back on it, sackcloth and ashes style. And, if we don't, we're all going to die. Now, it's like, oh my goodness, if we don't get all this AI going, we're going to be dominated by the country with the AI. And they're going to eat our breakfast, and we're going to turn into we're going to become subservient to the country with the AI because there's no second place, is there? If you've got somebody with 20% more intelligence than you, you're a Dumbo and they are going to rule you. So you can't let your country be dominated in AI. Well, what does that mean then? It means we have to burn a lot of energy to make more AI. Oh, and that means you have to keep upping the output and increasing the intelligence because they're going to do the same. So we're in a never-ending AI arms race. Well, that changes absolutely everything. And the other thing it changes is one of my obscure hobbies is treasure hunting. And I'll go out into a field, big empty field, and there'll be buttons and buckles and thimbles and coins all over that field. People say, what's it doing in an empty field? Well, people used to live there. A couple of 100 years ago, that was full of houses. 95% of the people worked on the land. And that's what they did, because that's how you got your food. If you didn't have 95% of the people working on the land, you'd starve. Well, along came artificial muscles, and their muscles were no longer needed. Well, they didn't. Well, the Luddites thought they'd all starve and everybody would be out in their ear and there'd be apocalypse. But no, they moved to the city. They got more highly economically involved jobs, and we went into the modern world, and all those houses got ploughed into the fields. And, I'm sure they wept as they trudged towards Paris and London. I'm sure, it was traumatic for them in that moment. But from that point in time, people's life expectancy went up from like 35 to now it's 80. And that's purely being because of artificial muscle. Well, now we've got artificial brains. What's that going to do? That's going to do the same again, isn't it? Now, the Luddites thought everybody was going to perish. And in a way they did. All those towns, all those lifestyles, all that way that they would be used to for hundreds and hundreds of years, that all perished. But because they had leverage, they went on to, they elevated. The whole of humanity was elevated. And AI, I believe, will do exactly that. And it's a benign thing, but it's also entirely changes the game. And that is, as somebody who's of a certain age, and I'm not expected to be around it in 25 years, I've got a generation to have a lot of fun, make a lot of money, and, play some very interesting markets.
Clem, you mentioned energy during that answer. What forms of energy are you looking at to power this AI revolution?
All possible energy is going to be used. That's why they're reopening coal mines in America. That's why they're building nuclear power plants now. Remember, nuclear power, 10 minutes ago, it was the scourge of the earth. It was Satan's own power source. It was the worst possible thing. It was, going to kill everybody, and you go near it and you're going to get sick and die and terrible things, right? And now, nuclear power, we need to put that on our Rice Krispies. It's like, it's wonderful stuff now, boys and girls. We're going to build lots of that. That's why they're doing that. They're not doing that because they suddenly like nuclear power. They've done that because the penny has dropped, that they need infinite amounts of energy now. And the only real infinite supply of energy is going to come from nuclear. But they won't stop them burning coal. It won't stop them, burning peat or burning oil, burning everything. They will boil the oceans. And that will come with big, big issues. And the best way to one of the ways to ameliorate that is going to be platinum palladium catalysts.
Yeah, well, we'll get onto that. I mean, I was just reading just before this interview about XAI, Elon Musk's AI company, and they're just building the vast, vast data centers, aren't they? So it's not only that, but it's also the demand for chips as well, isn't it?
Yeah, copper, cooling, sheds, water, you name it. It's all about energy. AI is pure energy. Those machines that do the work, that actually do the training, it's not the actual running of AI that's the big cog. It's the actual training the data. Those things are basically, they might as well be space eaters. They are basically electrical short circuits near enough. And they put, 500 watts into one little one, and they got millions of them. So a rack of, say, 100 kilowatts of those circuit boards, which is maybe a couple of hundred of them, that's 100 kilowatt heating element. It's vast amounts. It goes straight to heat. So it's electricity equals heat and AR. That's it. There's no other product. And it's mainly heat. I mean, actually, that somebody will come up with a really good use for all that heat and make a fortune, because actually that's the waste material is heat, which should actually be capturable and reusable and turned into all sorts of good things. I mean, if you were running a greenhouse that was growing orchids, you'd want to be next to one of those plants because you could get all your heat for free. And then probably ask you to take it away from them, probably pay you to take it away. Yeah, so, there's all sorts of things that come off from this massive energy and need. And it's also going to require huge infrastructure that's going to generate huge amounts of energy, and there will be large quantities of surplus energy, and that will feed back into the economy, and that will feed into all sorts of good stuff. So, it all could go horribly wrong, of course, but what the world we know now is going to be significantly upshifted by all this AI. And anybody that's used AI to any great extent will see, oh, look at that. I mean, I write fast when I write my articles, but AI writes 5 times faster. So, it levels me up 500% if I was to use it. You can even write material in my voice. I've written so much stuff, I'm in there. It's captured me. I'm already immortal in ChatGPT's model. You can say, talk nonsense like Clem Chambers, here's Starling, it'll do just that.
Ditch the spreadsheets. ShareSite is Investopedia's top tracker for DIY investors. Invest smarter, not harder. Grab 4 months free on an annual premium plan at sharesite.com/stocks for beginners. It's interesting, and it's an analogy which sort of arises out of it. You talked about the agricultural workers at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution trudging off into the big cities. How do you think the nature of work now that the workers of the 21st century are trudging off into the world of AI? How do you think work is going to change?
Well, first of all, people don't really calculate just how quickly people leave university and then retire. Yeah. So if you imagine that you leave university these days at, say, 25, because maybe some people go to do doctorates, etc., and then they're hoping to quit at 55, that's 30 years. Well, 3 years, that's 10% of the workforce retiring. And you saw that with COVID, it was 2 or so years of everything stopped, and there was 2 years of training of various professions that wasn't done, and therefore was a big hole in the actual throughput of jobs. So actually, a generation will go through work into retirement pretty quick. And when you think that Windows 95 was 30 years ago, well, that's a whole generation of workers leaving university and getting to retirement. So actually, our economy can absorb a changeover quite quickly. So, by the time people who are just about to enter university or entering university, by the time they leave, AI will have made such an impact that it'll be every day. And the thing is that people think, well, I used to do a job in this 8 hours and this damn machine will do it in an hour. And therefore they're going to get rid of, 7 out of 10 of me and replace me and another 7 others with one guff. But actually what happens is you make 8 times as much. Yeah. Or you make some way more complicated, or you make something in a way more elaborate manner, or you go from horrible plates to porcelain. And the appetite under the capitalist system for more and more clever stuff is really what capitalism's all about. So there'd be a demand for the elaborate output of this, elevated economy. There will be no shortage of demand for it. The fact that everybody will have a Louis Vuitton bag and it'll be Ties. There'll still be a super Louis Vuitton bag at ridiculous amounts of money for no apparent reason, and people will still be clamoring for it. It will just be an upshift.
So we've segued nicely into sci-fi stocks here because science fiction is bleeding into science fact at the moment. Which sort of companies are you looking at that may benefit from some of these dynamics that are playing out at the moment?
Well, first of all, what spurred me to write that little article in Seeking Alpha was that while I was looking elsewhere, while I was trembling under my desk because of the wild man of Washington, there'd been a stock market explosion in quantum computing, which I have, and I'm not the greatest fan of quantum computing. I think it has mathematical difficulties, but anyway, that didn't matter. Out came Google and said, we're Google, we've got qubits coming out of our ears, yay, yay, yay. Everyone, oh my God, it's going to be like AI. We didn't believe in it, and then suddenly, boom, there it was. And up everything went. I completely missed it. And I bumped into this quantum stock and it's gone through the roof. And I went, oh, duh, I missed it. I mean, you couldn't catch the AI wave really because it was all in the private sector. But there's quite a lot of quantum companies out there. And I said, I'm not going to miss the next one. Having said that, I did miss the next one immediately because I'm actually these days working in environmental chemistry on rare earth minerals. And all the rare earth minerals companies exploded about 5 weeks ago. And there's me in that business. And it's like cobbler's shoes, right? I haven't got a decent pair of shoes. I missed all the people that are in the very thing that I'm most excited about. I was too busy with my one to go and pick up rare earth stocks. But anyway, there you go. But there's a whole load of things coming down the line. And maybe they'll happen, maybe they won't happen. And you've got to stake them out. And you've got to watch just in case somebody comes up with it. And, the classic one is I get it the wrong way around. Fusion, not fission. Fission is what we've got. Fusion is what we want. And, they've been working on that for ever and ever. When I was a kid, they were going to do it. And I went, oh, goody. Oh, yes, it's coming. And here I am, an old man. It still hasn't come. But, all it takes is some guy to go, actually, if I do this with that, oh, it worked. And then bang, up would all the fusion companies would go. So you've got to think of all the things that they say is coming that isn't arrived yet. And obviously one of those things is, there's a whole load. You can just pick your favorite out if only they had. There's the Fountain of Youth that they're still looking for. One day they may find, something that reprograms your DNA so you don't snuff it a few years older than me. And so you live into 230 years old or something. And then, of course, there is the nuclear fusion and there's a whole host of other ones. And you just have to keep your eye on them just in case and when somebody says, oh, Google has just invented, this marvelous technology, time machine, then rather than go, oh, that's quaint, you should immediately go around all the stocks that are in that field and saying how they're going to, crack the code and just buy them because they'll blow up because of that somebody who has got, like Google or Amazon has come on and actually said that that's the thing. Now, of course, I've completely forgotten what I listed out as the coming technologies because, I've got the idea in my head. Just watch out for the next crazy bit of technology that hasn't quite made it out. Well, electric cars, how long were they coming for? Yeah, I mean,
over 100 years, Clem.
100. Well, I got run over by an electric car when I was a child. It was a milk float. It ran me over. And then nobody made them anymore. And I think some of the earliest cars were electric. And it took, somebody taking a 100-year-old scientist's name and sticking it on the bonnet to actually turn that into a thing. So you have to keep your eyes peeled on that, because those things can go large. I mean, look at SpaceX. I mean, that he's done a brilliant job turning a clear and obvious thing that nobody else seemed to be able to do into something that is doable. So if there are a group of companies, I mean, nanotechnology, I don't think I wrote about nanotechnology, but nanotechnology has always been coming. And you've got to watch out for when somebody like, I don't know, Pfizer comes out and says, we've got a cure for, deafness, that's nanotechnology. And then the moment you see that, go out and put 5% of your portfolio into nanotech companies and watch them go through the roof in the next 3 months and then bail out. I mean, don't hold them for long. It's only that everybody's going, you'll be the first in, and hopefully you'll be the second out. And that is the way to trade those things. And it was, such a pain to have missed the obvious with the quantum stuff. And there's quite a lot of them out there, and that are pending, science pending. I wouldn't say science fiction. I'd say science pending.
Yeah, and you referred in that answer to rare earths. And of course, rare earths aren't actually all that rare. And like you say, it can be like lithium. Lithium was a craze a few years ago, and then the price of lithium has been languishing for a long time.
And you see, with rare earth, there's quite a lot that's happened there. People say it's not rare and it's not earth. Well, it is kind of rarish. It's not as rare as precious metals, but it is kind of rarish. But people can't process it. They can process it in China the way that they process it in China, because it's very difficult to process it anywhere but China the way that is processed, because it's such a dodgy process. It uses so many really vicious chemicals. And, I mix with chemists, and when they do it the Chinese way, they wear hazmat suits. They use chemicals that will melt your face off at a distance. So, environmentally, very expensive if you're in the West. Not so expensive if you're in certain places in the world where they don't care so much. But anyway, the stuff that we're working with doesn't use Chinese chemicals, doesn't use Chinese equipment. It's patented, very basic chemistry. It's an alkali process, and it's an alkali play, not an acid play, blah, 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 blah. So it is emerging, because there are ways of doing it that will be done that will take rare earths out of the stranglehold of China. And, they've managed to get themselves all sorts of strategic strangleholds. And that's another big change, because up to very recently, they've been encouraged, and done a very good job in cornering many, many markets. If you go back, say, 1890, Britain was the workshop of the world. And that's why it was a dominant superpower. It was the workshop of the world. And then America became the workshop of the world, and that became the dominant superpower. Well, right now, China's the workshop of the world, and you can finish the sentence, right? And so that is a reality. And unfortunately, they're using that, like governments have a very bad habit of doing. They're abusing their position of strength. They're using it as leverage, which is actually a great shame for them that they've done that. They could have just played nice and smiled and just own the world and gone around and be smiley and nice and kind and not cause any trouble, and nobody would have noticed, and they would have gone another 20 years down the line, and they would have surpassed America, and nothing would have happened apart from they become the richest country, most powerful country, the most successful country in the world. What people don't realize is China has twice as much money denominated in their currency, yuan. There's twice as much dollars of yuan in the world than there are dollars. So already China has twice as much money as America. And that's not American dollars, it's their own currency that other people would want. So they've built up twice as much cash money than America has. They've got 4 times as many people, so the average Chinese has half of as many cash dollars on average as the average American. But nonetheless, if you piled up all that money in a pile, they got twice as much of it that America has. So the dominance has already occurred. The cat is already out the bag, the horse is bolted, and they haven't locked the door. And it may be too late, and maybe it should be late, maybe it's fine. But the fact of the matter is, they are the workshop of the world. And the West is going to try to reverse that. It's going to try to build up its industrial base, build up its the base of the pyramid of its economy, rather than say, we don't need the base, we don't need the metals, we don't need the heavy industry, we don't need the light industry. In fact, some of the services we don't even need. We just need the top of the very pit, the value add. That's all we need. And of course, what they've realized is if you don't control the base of the pyramid and you lose it, everything stops. So, but that's a complete, utter change in the world. And obviously in places like Australia, which are so powerful in raw materials, that's great news because it puts them in fashion. You know, the periodic table is back in fashion now, and it's going to stay that way for a very, very long time.
Yep, we're always good at digging out those minerals, aren't we? But
well, you've got a big lump of land there, mate.
That we do, and we got that lovely red earth as well.
There's grass on it to hide what you've got underneath it.
It's interesting with China as well, the dominance in the EV space, which has happened so fast, you know, but they've got this strategic thinking behind it that they want to reduce oil consumption and they want to do it by using EVs and drilling. And they're drilling for oil like the deepest wells in the world, 7 miles under the earth to get the oil out, just to get away from being dominated by anyone else by the price of oil as well. And, you know, I think the US has got 200 and something thousand charging stations and 14 million in China. The dominance is unbelievable.
Well, you see, the thing about industry and business and lots of things in America and in the West is that they throw barriers in front of you all the day long. They will tie you up in red tape faster than you say knife, just like the old communists used to do. You know, if you when I started out in business, maybe 1 day a month would be paperwork. Now it's 2 days a week for the top management in paperwork. Yeah. And everything has got rules and everything you've got to be careful of. And if you don't do it right, you get slapping. And if you don't do it right, you've got to have an attitude of criminal, basically, because it's clear what they tell you you've got to do. And whether it's a good idea or not, you've got to do it. And of course, if you're sucking out, not only from a tax-based point of view, but you're sucking out the actual tension and energy of your industrial base with all this stupid rules and all these overheads. And the tax load in China is really low. I can't remember what of GDP it is, like 17% of GDP. In Sweden, it's 50%. Yeah, which is 50% of GDP means the government spends 50% of GDP, which means there is no GDP in the private sector. It's all gets sucked out through taxation. Well, you know, if the private sector doesn't get to keep any of its gains, it can't reinvest, can it? So there is absolutely systemic reasons why things are so glued down in the so-called developed world. And why, if you have a government who's really, really keen for you to go for it, and you're going to get really fast progress. And, oh, yeah, we need a car industry. Yeah. How about some subsidies? Go off and do that. Yeah, no, oh, yeah, rules. Now, just do it. Just do it. Don't get in the headlines and don't be too stupid. Just go on with it. You want a plant? There it is. You want to build a factory? Go on. There's some land. You know, if you had a great idea, you want to build a bit of anything in the UK, anything at all, you'd be lucky if you could do it 3 years. Even if you've got the money, even if you've got the backing, even if you've got a bevy of politicians behind you, 3 years, you know, you would still be lucky.
It's insane, isn't it? Anyway, we better get off market economics because it's what we got to deal with anyway, isn't it? It's
yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
And of course, inefficient markets, you know, give up opportunities as well. So, you know, it's a double-headed coin, and one of those sides is in your favor. And the other thing is, if you make money out of inefficiencies, you will actually work to get rid of them because, you know, inefficiencies can't last because if the money flows, it will flow away from that, and you will draw money out of the inefficiency, and it ultimately collapses under its own weight. So when you're in the markets and you're making money out of them by exploiting weaknesses in the economics, you are actually part of the cure.
So let's have a look at the precious metals. And there's 4 main precious metals: gold, silver, platinum, palladium. But it's the last 2 that you're particularly interested in at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, okay, there's just so many pointers that say they're good. First of all, you look at gold and you say it's $3,200 an ounce. Well, a few years ago, platinum was 1-to-1 for quite a long period. And before that, it was 2-to-1. Well, okay, let's just go back to parity then. Thank you very much. Ka-ching! There you are. You've just made a 250% profit. Now, you look at them and you go, well, why are they so cheap? Well, they're so cheap because the internal combustion engine's going away and all these cat converters got a little bit of platinum. And by the time they've all been crushed and put in canisters and sent back to China for reprocessing, there's going to be a big mountain of platinum and palladium and nobody's going to want it. Okay, well, the internal combustion engine is no longer going away. Yeah, for the previous mentioned AI thing, but people would explain it differently or just say, oh, no, we're going to do it, but it's going to take a little longer. But no, actually, they're going to want all the petrol, they're going to want all the hydro, they're going to want all the nuclear, they're going to want all the tidal, they're going to want all the coal, and they want all the lignite, and want all the solar, want it all. They're going to want it all, they're going to keep it all, they're going to dig it all up, and they're all going to be burning it like crazy. Now, that also means, what is the cure for that pollution? Well, it's platinum and palladium. That it is an important catalyst.
Just to clarify, it's to do with catalytic converters in engines for
but not just that. Not just that.
Yeah.
It's a general catalyst. They're also very important in things like fuel cells. So they're a general wonder metal for environmental issues. Now, there's going to be needed lots and lots of environmental and remediation, because they're just going to need to deal with all sorts of environmental impacts of this mad AI race. And that AI race is not going to go back in the bottle. If someone says, oh, we need to legislate, no, we can't have it. No, the other guys will get it, and you'll be, sitting under a coconut tree praying for the people to come to give you aid. You have no choice if you're going to be, on the first tier, and you're not going to be horribly exploited by people smarter than you. So, I'm not for it. In fact, I see my role as ameliorating that. And the sort of chemistry my chemists are doing is exactly that. It's ways of lowering the environmental load on all what's coming. There's no good, sitting there moaning about it. It is absolutely inescapable and inevitable. And if half the world said, no, we're not going to do it, the other half will. And, and then they'll carry on doing it, won't they? So anyway, it's inevitable. What is needed is environmental remediation, and platinum and palladium are two of the core elements in that push. Now, if that isn't enough, and it is for me, and this is just such an amazing number, they only dig up 200 tons of platinum, 200 tons of palladium every year. 200 tons. Yeah, gold, 3,200 tons, silver, 25,000 tons, which is another interesting one, because gold's $3,200 an ounce, and silver is only produced at whatever 3 into 25 is an eighth. It should be an eighth of $3,200, shouldn't it? So it should be like $450 an ounce, shouldn't it? I mean, it's
but
very
hang on. Isn't silver known as the widowmaker? Investing in silver, that's always promised so much.
That's the character. Once upon a time, silver was 5 to 1 to gold, and it went 10 to 1. And then it went 20 to 1, and then it went 40 to 1, and then it went 100 to 1 like it is now, give or take. Well, it's not 100 to 1 anymore. But yes. And silver is retail gold. Gold is government money for war. Silver is, money for problems, for savings, for the retail entities. So, gold is for war. Silver is what the retail goes for when gold goes for a run. But platinum, palladium, gold is probably going to go to 5,000 anyway, which is horrible news, because it's all about global tension. Gold is only driven by governments buying it because it's bullets. Yeah. As we can see, although we've had a little quiet patch for a few weeks, the need for governments to buy bullets seems to be on an ever increasing trajectory. And the currency of war is gold, because intercountry transactions, when there's a war involved, suddenly they don't take paper anymore. They take submarines with crates of gold. So, that is the fundamental reason why China's buying so much gold. Yeah, and why all the other countries are bringing it in. Even Poland's loading up on it. Well, not even. I mean, why wouldn't they? They're sat on the edge of a war, aren't they? So, if you can relate to that or believe that model, you can see that gold is going to continue to go up until all of a sudden somebody says, oh, come on, guys, let's just be friends. But I don't see that being soon, do you? So we're going to have at least another 2.5 years of increasing tension. Well, that's 2.5 years for gold to go from 3,400 to who knows where, and silver will go with it, and platinum, palladium will go with it, because of their fact that they are also analogs, precious metals. And platinum is actually quite good as an analog to gold, because the reason gold is like it is because it's sheer weight and rarity. I tell this story, and strange enough, people don't really get it, but when the Americans had to run away from the Philippines because the Japanese were coming, they loaded the gold onto a ship or a submarine, I can't remember which, but one or the other, And they took the silver and they threw it in the bay. They threw away the silver. They just chucked it in the middle of the bay because it wasn't heavy. It wasn't dense enough for them to carry it off. They just chucked it away in the bay. And that's the difference. That's why gold is what it is, because you can load a huge amount of value to a very small space. And platinum and palladium also have that because they're very heavy metals. But, ultimately, platinum, I don't want to get packed in platinum. No. Just send the gold bars, please. So gold is that thing. But platinum and palladium will go, I believe, 1-to-1 with gold. Well, it's like a very leveraged play on gold. So, platinum even goes to $2,000. It will have gone up a lot, but I can see it going 1-to-1. And remember, 20 years ago, it's 2-to-1. So it should be $6,000 an ounce. Should be, it could be, would be, might be, but it's 200 tons. That's it's like none. 200 tons. And it's not like rare earth kind of around the place. They've got some in Russia. Well, that's a bit tricky if you want any. They've got some in South Africa and they've got some in America. They're the three major points of production. Now, silver, you dig up jam donuts, it's got silver in it. Everything's got silver in it. Silver is a byproduct for pretty much huge amounts of mining. In fact, it used to be a byproduct of lead mining back in the day. And silver is not that uncommon, even though they only mine 25,000 tons of it, as opposed to 3,000 tons of gold. So it has legs. They've all got legs. Gold's got legs, silver's got legs, platinum, palladium have got legs. And I'm not a precious metal freak. In fact, I'm not a fan of it at all. I've been brought up ever since a little kid with people raving on about how gold's amazing gold. And, Apple's amazing. It was $1 and now it's, $12,000 unchanged. Nvidia, now there's a thing to hold for a generation, not the gold, but nonetheless, I like assets that are going to go up. And in my mind, it's a clear and simple and brainless call to, once you understand gold is for war, that is going to appreciate, not only go up in value numerically, but appreciate in real terms. So, that's what makes it totally compelling to me. 200 tons a year. And I look it up every 3 weeks to make sure it doesn't, 25,000 tons, no, 200, not even 1,000, 200 tons of each a year. And in the age of chemistry, which is where we're entering into.
What about the role of precious metals and Bitcoin in inflation? Do you think we've got still a problem with inflation and should we be hedging against it?
Well, yes and no. Yes, we're going to have it. Yes, it's going to be elevated. Yes, it's a pain. And yes, it's a problem for people. Inflation is a secondary disease, and it's a disease caused by government overspending. And by the fact that government always grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and can't stop growing and spending. This is something that occurred to me some time ago. Governments don't say, we've sat down for a couple of months and we've worked out what we need to spend, and this is how much money we need for tax. And when we got the money, we're not going to get any more. Or if we get more than that, we're going to send it back to you. So this is what we're going to spend. No, they say, how much money can we part the people with? And then we'll borrow more. So they take all the money they possibly can and they spend it all and then they spend more. So that is the methodology that drives the ever increasing likelihood of future difficulties with the national and government debts. And the only way you get around that, and there's other good reasons to do it, is to have a little bit of inflation. Yeah, what happens with inflation is it makes the economically active more active. Yeah, yes, and it punishes the economically inactive. But in a way, if you're a government, you want to subsidize what you want because you get more of it, and you want to punish what you don't want because you'll get less of it. So you punish the economic inactive, i.e. the savers and the people who are living off of savings, and you reward the people that are running around taking risks. So that policy decision for them. Secondly, it enables you to erode your debt. It's a slow motion default that nobody notices. So they like that too. And most of us would probably prefer to suffer, an amount of inflation for a good economy and the fact that the whole country won't collapse in a mountain of debt sometime in the future. So it's not such a terrible thing, but it's also quite difficult to control it that finely. But when you've built up a big hole in the ground, like you have with COVID, because that created massive systemic and debt, The only way you're going to get rid of it is by having like 5%, not 3%. Oh, funny enough, here it is 5. Yeah. And, funny enough, if you go, the wheels are going to come off now, just print a load of money, paper over it, don't care whether there's inflation, just make sure the whole economy doesn't collapse. I don't think anybody's going to say that wasn't a good thing. And that's why they always do it at the end of a war. There's always really high inflation at the end of a war. And of course, they will come and say, it's not us, we didn't do it. No, it's them, it's that. Oh, it's not us. No. Of course it's them. Of course it's them. It's only governments can create inflation, and only governments can stop it. It's about how much money they create and where they inject it. And if they inject it in a very inflationary way, for every dollar, you'll get very inflation. And if you inject it in a different way, you won't get so much inflation. But nonetheless, it's how much money that you are injecting into the system that causes inflation. More money than the supply of goods. Right? So inflation is here, and it's not by accident, and we're going to have it at a high-ish rate for quite a long time. Now, gold, any physical assets are a good thing to have. And if you are supersonically smart and clever, you borrow up to your ears and hope you don't go bust. And that's what a way large amounts of people got rich is they go, well, we're going to fight inflation, I'll borrow the money, and not only is the national debt going to get eroded away, so's mine. Right? And who hasn't done that? Who hasn't got a house that's going up in value and against what they actually borrowed the money against? And then, I've had a house for 15 years. The mortgage is kind of trivial. As long as you haven't used it as an ATM, your house, all of a sudden that mortgage you got 20 years ago is trivial because the inflation has paid off your debt for you. So there's two sides of this. And inflation, if you go into a deflation, then everybody goes, I've got enough money and it's only getting worth more. And, I can't be bothered. And it's going to be cheaper tomorrow. And so deflation tends to have that slowing down of economic activity. And that's why another reason not to have it. But how do you protect yourself from having your assets eroded? Well, economic activity, which people say, I don't want to go to work. No, I want to stop. Please don't make me be economically active. And I get it. Being economically active is stressful and a lot of effort. And to get it into productive assets, if you can find them, productive assets are always a good way. Gold, of course, isn't a productive asset, but it will not immediately, but over a long enough period, it will keep up with value and also with its intrinsic use case being for global tension. It will increase in value. So it's a good place to be. Equities is also a good place to be if you watch your show and skill up on it and realize it's a farm, not a casino. Yeah. And if you are diligent, hardworking, and you study the markets properly, like Warren Buffett, if you only ever read Warren Buffett and to stuck to his way, you will not come adrift. But of course, people often don't have the discipline. It's way too boring. But anyway, that is another way. In fact, in my belief, the only way that a normal person without a gift can actually become wealthy is through diligent investing in stocks. And, there's always good deals. And there's always another bus coming along in terms of what you can put your money into. If I missed quantum yesterday, I'll get nuclear fusion in 2 years or whatever. There's always another bus coming. It's just fine to buy in too high and sell not near enough the top. It's absolutely fine if you do it boringly. It's the way to go. So the best way to protect yourself from inflation and the easiest way to be economically active is to be a very, 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 very boring investor.
Okay, and now just to finish off, as I was researching and seeing your FAQs on your website, and we're men of a certain age who can talk openly about these things, Jeff Wayne's War of the World as your desert island disc. Only disc one.
No one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century that human affairs have been watched from the times worlds of space.
I know, but is this edging dangerously towards prog rock? Is it rock opera or prog rock? And another bloated era that was characterized by great inflation as well, in music as well as monetarily.
When I was a child, I produced the first computer game version of War of the Worlds. I worked with Jeff at his mansion in Hertfordshire. I was 21, and I produced the computer game of War of the Worlds. Yeah, there you go. In another life, I was one of the OGs of computer game industry when companies like Melbourne House were around. And that's why, yes, War of the Worlds is forever indelibly etched in my mind.
A golden age of prog rock. Clem Chambers?
It's that fabulous piece. And unfortunately, the game wasn't quite so fabulous, but I did try.
Fantastic. Clem Chambers, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you.
Great to be on.
Thanks for listening to Stocks for Beginners. If you enjoy listening, please take a moment to rate or review in your podcast player, or tell a friend who might want to learn more about investing for their future.